Hello, my pleasure seekers, and welcome to today's episode. I am back in Australia and I couldn't have anyone more perfect on today's episode. We've been chatting briefly before and we're like, we've got to hit record because there are some juicy conversations today with a beautiful Carolina, who is a fertility and womb Reiki healer. I cannot wait to dive into some serious conversation with you today. And I know many of you, my beautiful listeners, have shared like your own experience with womb healing and fertility and trying to conceive a family. So I think this is going to be a really beautiful conversation to have. So, Carolina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for allowing me to share your space with you.
Pleasure. So, one thing I would love to know, and I think a lot of people are going to listen in the moment and be like, "What? This sounds great, but what is this?" Like,
Yeah.
for you, how did you come into this space? Was there a particular moment, or as a kid you grew
Oh,
up and came from your mom's womb and
no,
I want to be a
no,
womb healer?
no. I grew up in a trailer, so I grew up with a very low vibe, toxic family, but I was always a little bit different. So how I found Reiki was through the recommendation of two people in the same week. I was a newlywed. My dad had died a year and a half or a little bit more than that prior. So I was very much deep into my grief therapy. And I had a horse accident. I had a horse at that time and I fell into a ditch and I had a concussion. So I was on medical leave. During this medical leave, we had been trying to conceive for quite some time at that point, and I wasn't getting pregnant. There's nothing medically wrong with me. All my hormones were fine. I didn't have any medical conditions. My period was normal. And because of the concussion, I couldn't drive and I couldn't watch TV. My memory wasn't coming back very well. So my husband drove me to the psychic shop where I was taking like spiritual classes and learning about spirit guides and like consciousness and vibration. And she's like, you don't need a crystal to help heal your concussion. Your chakras are blocked. You should get Reiki. That same week, unrelated, I went to my grief therapist because I had weekly sessions. And she's like, you should be further along. You should be progressing and you're kind of stuck. She recommended either pharmaceuticals or she goes, I was like, I don't want to do that. I've done that before and it's such a long process and I've never really liked the way it had an effect on me. And she recommended Reiki. Now she recommended a place that was entirely different than what the psychic did. It was kind of like the real life private practice, which is like that old early 2000s show where they have every modality in one place in one building. So they have like a psychiatrist and they have a Chinese medicine doctor and they have, you know, all the things in one building. So I went to a place like that here in Omaha where I'm based. And it was the most magical experience. And I was pregnant the next month. And in that session, it was a Reiki master. I call her my Reiki mother because not only did she give me Reiki and help me get pregnant, she went on to teach me and gave Reiki to my husband and my son. She's just a walking angel in my book. So the reason that she was truly recommended was she was a trauma massage therapist that happened to be Reiki attuned. And my grief therapist said, it's not moving out of you. Like the panic attacks and my grief was very physical and the grief that I had was from losing my dad. My dad was my person. And when my dad died, he was the only person to have never physically abused me. So I felt like my safety was lost in the world. And even though I married a very nice man and we're still married and he's just the greatest guy, but my anger, what that I had like strived to achieve and his approval my whole life, he was a very tumultuous kind of person, my dad. And without him living, I just didn't know also how to breathe or live without him existing in the world. Death is very bizarre. But with Reiki in that session, I was able to take a deep breath again. I had a very physical reaction a very physical release when she was working on my body. Like I felt things leave my body. And I cried a lot in that session, but I also felt like my lungs could expand for the first time in a year and a half. I mean, this was February 2016. And my dad died April of 2014. So this is like, a little bit shy of 2 years. And it was after that session, 1 month later, we were testing positive. Who is our now son, Ollie. He's 7 now. So he is the first Reiki baby. And it was because of recommendation from 2 people who were unrelated in the same week. So when you hear signs from the universe or you get messages, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, whatever your belief system is, God, Buddha, universe, source, Mother Earth, can speak through others to you. Are you just open to seeing signs or receiving patterns or seeing the patterns that are being presented to you? For me, one of the dads, my dad used to say, he goes, if you're hearing the same message from different people, especially if they're unrelated, perk up, listen up, because there is something there. Usually you're the common denominator, or there is something that you're missing out on. And this was that. I got Reiki through my pregnancy, when I was giving birth, she gave me distance Reiki. And I ended up with a really complicated pregnancy, a very traumatic birth that everything that could have gone sideways with my birth plan did. Ended up an emergency C-section, really dangerous infection in my uterus post-birth, C-section rupturing, my incision ruptured, and baby ended up in NICU, even though he was born on his due date and he was 9 pounds, 3 ounces. And my postpartum, I had severe postpartum anxiety, more than my depression, but I did have both. Reiki consistently with the talk therapy in my postpartum is what made me at least function. And then slowly over time, I was able to come out of it. Probably around 18 months postpartum is when I finally was like, doomsday is not here every day. And I feel like I can smile again, and things got a lot easier. He got a lot easier, and things were not just so hard. It was really hard. Everything was hard to leave the house, hard to carry the car seat. Everything was just super hard in postpartum for me. Even opening the mail, I stopped functioning the way I used to be, which was overachiever, super doer. And postpartum is when I learned that all of the things that were unhealed, they kind of erupted in my postpartum. So I had not told anyone about my assaults at that point. My abortion came up, and my husband knew about that, and it just made me feel very unworthy. And it made it for really intrusive, dark thoughts. And it was really hard to function outside my apartment. So with Reiki, it just allowed me to ground. And I didn't really know what that feeling was like before because of all the trauma and having a very uneasy, unsettling childhood. I didn't know that, I just loved how I felt after every session. And then eventually she convinced me when Ollie was 6 months, she's like, he gets a lot of ear infections. You could help him with pain. You're his grounding force. I was breastfeeding full time. It took me 10 weeks to breastfeed exclusively, but she's like, everything's working out. I got a new job at 6 months. I quit. I went back to work at 4 months, and it was a dumpster fire. And then I got a new job closer to the house, and she's like, this is the time you should do this. And you can do this. I was like, that's your magic. And she's like, no, let me teach you. And she really poured into me, and it changed me. And she would meet me at Starbucks even after the attunement, and she would mentor me. She did this for years. And I eventually started my Reiki business after that in 17, I was in postpartum. I wanted other moms to know what it was like to have something like this in postpartum, and then it just grew from there. And then I went online virtually 1 month before the pandemic hit, ironically enough. And I at that point, I was coined the womb healer after serving so many women and seeing like patterns show up in the womb. Everything goes back to the womb. So that's how I started a Reiki, and I received Reiki, and then I became certified in 4 different lineages, started serving people in person, and then went virtual.
And so, what for you, this always fascinates me. How did you come out? Like, was it a bit of a nervousness around sharing around Reiki? Like, some people can be quite resistant with the Western world and the medicine, the conditioning that people have. Like, like coming out. That's what I mean. Is in like, how did you feel sharing that was one of
It's
your
a funny
gifts?
question. No one's ever asked me that in a podcast, and I have very strong opinions about this. And because for a long time, I didn't talk about it. Like,
Mm,
because I call myself a spiritualist. I believe in God, but I also believe in Mother Earth, and I pray to Mother Earth, and I believe in archangels, and I believe in spirit babies, and I believe in a lot of things that are not defined by churches. And I see things. So I have evidence for me that my husband hasn't experienced. My son sees things. I can see ghosts. I can see spirits, and I also can banish them from our home.
yeah,
But a lot of people will find that very threatening. What I have found is I've lost a lot of people because I am not like, they usually bring it up to me. So they know, like, I'm Reiki, I do Reiki, and then they decide for themselves if they want to have a conversation. But I'm very careful of who I have conversations with. I am now very open about it. My husband's family is very conservative and they're evangelical Christians. I don't discuss it with them at all. They know what I do. They know about my website. They know about my podcast. They know this is what I do full time, but we don't talk about it. And that's okay, because what I do and what my dreams are not for them. They're not my target audience. So I don't care. They're very respectful though. I've had last August when I came home from visiting my best friend that I hadn't seen in about 2 years. She ended our friendship after 15 years of friendship because she's like, your values are very different than when we first started our friendship. It was like, yes, I'm very different than when we were at 25. I have deconstructed my faith, and I believe, I'm anti-racist, and I have very strong there's a lot of my beliefs, and over the Reiki has allowed me to heal enough to be different and be strong in what I believe and also have peace in it. And if you're not aligned with that, or you can't love me anyway, then that's okay. There's the door. I
yeah,
wish you well. There's no bitterness. There is no hate. There's no nothing. It just means I know my path. I know my life purpose, and I stand in it. I don't live my life, nor do I teach my clients to live life in fear. And a lot of the people that I've encountered when I've come out, they're still living their life in fear because that's what the church has done and taught them. Of like, you're going to hell. I don't believe in hell. And this scares people. And, for me, that's okay, because I have, as much as they have belief in their truths from what they follow, I have lost a lot of people. Um, but that's okay. I have gained the right
yes,
ones.
yeah,
But it is painful. So I didn't have like a coming out party. It just depends. Like, some people have sent me like alarming YouTube videos. You need to watch this hour and 45 minutes of how this woman was, taken over by Satan when she got her Reiki attunement. That's not real, or it wasn't done ethically. Like, I also, like, it just You can't, I'm always open to have an educational conversation as long as if it's even and it's respectful and not vindictive. But a lot of the people who find out or they go exploring what Reiki is and they don't find resources that are valid or reliable resources, or even want to have a conversation with me about it, it's usually vindictive or trying to convince me not to do it. But I'm 7 years in. I'm not doing you're not changing my mind.
No.
I promise you. And I promise you, like, if there's a hell, we're living in it already. I have very strong opinions, but I'm also very respectful and I honor people. So, like, if I know you're a Christian or evangelical, I'm just going to be like, yeah, I have a podcast and I have an online business. And I don't, like, I wait until I further know the person. They're like, but what is your online business? And I'm like, and by that point, I can gauge whether or not the person is going to be safe enough to have a kind of conversation with them. Not that I'm hiding, but it's also probably not relevant. Like, I have an online business. Great. You're brand new. I don't know you. So, and that's exactly it. It's not a lie. So, but if it's like, you want to know what Reiki is? Sure. Reiki originated in Japan. Da 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 da. I use it and I have adapted it for this. And it's exactly how we conceived our son, Ollie. But not everyone is emotionally available or mature or responsible enough to have a calm conversation about things that are very different from them, that are fundamentally really different.
Really
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
I just tread lightly.
But I mean, the Western world and medicine, I see a lot of people are questioning things now. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, where they're like, well, this has never worked for me, or I'm taking more pills for more pills or more pills. Like,
I
do
think
you
there's a
see that?
movement. There is more people saying why, like they're
Mm,
asking that question. But I still see a lot of people, because we're indoctrinated that doctors know it all, and doctors are the ones that are walking encyclopedias, and they are the ultimate health authority. And that's a multi-generational thing. Like, doctors know what's best, not you, about your own body. And I
Yeah.
think you have to want to change that, or you've had to have a lot of letdowns or painful failures to seek something differently in the United States. Honestly, that's what I see. So I think it's a lot of waste and pain before they ask why, or they have a traumatic event with someone related to them. Then they ask why, or how can I do it differently?
And so for you then, with like your Reiki gifts and you mentioned around chakras and things, what was it for you that was blocking you from conceiving Ollie in your chakra?
Emotional safety. I wasn't
Ah,
emotional safety, and our wombs are our emotional reservoir. And if you don't feel safe enough to experience your emotions, feel them fully, express them, then you're not going to feel worthy enough to take up space, worthy enough to speak up, worthy enough to be creative or express your passions, which are all those things. I had a terribly low libido. Um, and also can affect your ability to get pregnant, which are all physical manifestations of a blockage in that particular area of your body, meaning the sacral plexus chakra. So in my case, because my dad died, I felt unsafe to exist in the world because I had identified the story I had, which is very natural for a woman to wrap up her safety with her father. I later learned that that's going to be the biggest wound, the father wound and emotional safety. Because a lot of women, that the main theme that I see is women do not feel safe enough to feel their emotions. It's an epidemic
yeah.
because they're taught from children, shh, 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 it's not the time, be quiet. They get rewarded for being quiet, and then they learn to quiet their voices. And that's a direct relation to their throat chakra, where they learn to shut down. When they shut down their voice, they shut down their feelings, and then they learn that they're more valuable and there's less conflict if they're quiet.
Mm.
So then in turn, or they get more validated. Like, a lot of women don't have the presence of a dad, or they're not emotionally available. So they are meant to be an adult or act like an adult way too soon. They're meant to grow up way too fast.
Mhm.
And that can lead to PCOS. That's like the most, so there's like a correlational pattern that I've seen. Like, so dads that were not present, or maybe moms were working like two jobs, single parent household, or maybe dad was completely out of the picture, whatever the case may be, the child, which is now the woman trying to conceive, the person trying to conceive, there's a correlation between a lot of adulting, a lot of maturity having to come way before they're ready. So there was a lack of care for them. Their needs were not met, and they somehow had to get it done. And then over time, that overcompensation from the lack of the adults, they get rewarded for it. So then that leads to more masculine behavior that is like the initial response. I'll get it done. I can help you move. I'll be your best friend. Don't worry. It's okay. I don't need you to text me. I'll text you anyway. So overcompensation, people pleasing, and getting it done, or hyper independence, those are all behaviors of like PCOS. I see emotional behaviors behind it. But really what it is a father wound.
It's wild you're saying that, because I have a couple of family members that have PCOS, and I'm literally like, yes,
Yeah.
with the father, and I'm gonna send it to
Yeah.
them. Like, that's it's not crazy. It makes so much sense. But until you say that out loud, no one's gonna know.
No, no, but it was what I lived. My dad wasn't around when I was young. I went to live with him when I was 15, and they were divorced before I was 1. He certainly did not want a third kid, and it was very well known. So, like, his seeking his approval was, like, kind of, like, in my soul contract, and, not finally getting it until the very end. And that can do a number. Like, usually there's an abandonment wound, there's a lack of self-trust because they didn't show up for you. So if they don't show up for you, or they don't choose you, or they don't invest in time, or they don't come when they say they're supposed to, and there's a lack of follow through from the dad to the child, they can interpret that in so many different ways. But the most common ways it's interpreted is, if they don't show up, I'm not worth their time. I don't I can't trust him, I can't trust me. Or if they do, like if a child does speak up when they say, "Hey, you didn't come when you were supposed to." "Oh, you're being like they'll dismiss it. "Oh,
Silly.
you're making too big of a deal out of this." But really just like the child's looking for accountability. So then they learn also not to trust other people. What happens consequently is, and this definitely was upon reflection. I'm a projector, so I can see patterns super well in my own behavior, because my dad was very much absent. And even though I lived with him from 15 to 19 years of age, I still chose very bad men. I chose men who were not available. I chose men who were going to abandon me. I chose men who were going to mistreat me, who were going to verbally speak to me the same way he did, because that's what I associated with a man.
But you mentioned that you met your husband before, obviously
Eventually.
you mentioned to the Reiki world. So how was
Yeah,
there a shift that you felt that
there
made you
was
attract
a shift.
him?
I woke
Ooh.
up. There was a shift. So when I lived in Miami until age 29, and I was dating a guy, and it was not the guy for me. And I knew as long as I stayed in that city, I would always probably stay with him, because it was kind of just like this cycle I could not get out of. But I knew if I changed my environment, I would choose differently. And I was a late college graduate, so I didn't graduate college until 29. So it was kind of all colliding at the same time. I
Wow.
didn't have anything left for me in Miami. At that point, I was enrolled in a master's program shortly starting after an online master's program after my college graduation. And I started applying for 3 months before graduation to every job across the United States in that field. I used to be in pharmaceutical manufacturing in quality assurance. So I would like audit and I would do like batch records and things like that. So in quality systems, I was really much involved in software, in training, all of those things, and documentation, and the Food and Drug Administration, like FDA regulations and audits and supporting audits. So it's totally different than what I'm doing now. But I got a job offer 2 weeks after I graduated, and it was from Miami to Nebraska. And I was like, it was the only job offer. And it was $20,000 than I was making then. And I said, yes, my soul wanted to start over where nobody knew me. And I was like, at 29, you kind of like, what am I doing with my life? I don't want to be with this guy. He's not good for me. And I would really love to start over. And I've done all the things here. And my friend group was changing vastly. They were all getting married.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've dated everything under the sun here. It's really not working out. So I moved to Nebraska alone. I ended up meeting my husband 7 months after with a matchmaker. I hired a matchmaker.
No
I saw on a
way.
billboard. Yeah, it was called Omaha Love. And they would set you up on dates. I had to show my license. I had to show my employment contract. They like verified your identity. So it was like a high-end matchmaking. I would go in and they took pictures of me and they put me into their portal. And my husband and I would go on dates that they set up. So the guys weren't going to kill me. The guys were like vetted, and I had never really dated before. I was always in a relationship or single. And like guys were just like, they were like Hispanic guys would like girlfriend you up real fast. So for me, I was like, I want to learn how to date. I want to like this Midwestern thing. What's it about? I heard that they marry really fast here. That's going to be fun. So, and I said, I want to get married because at 29, I was like, I do want to have a family. And the guy that had been dating in Miami didn't, he was a little bit younger than me. I think I was 29 and he was 25. And he's like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have babies. But I started to think about that. I was like, I want to get married. I want to like, after I had done the thing that I had worked on for so long, which was college graduation, why not expand your career? Okay, now that I've done this, like, what can I do with my career? And like, what's the next thing is like, oh, get a partner that's equal to you. And I was like, I definitely don't want this anymore. And I didn't trust myself to choose a good person. So I hired the matchmaker. I was like, I literally went in, I was like, I don't have a good picker. I date the wrong people. Can you choose a nice guy for me? I just want the nice guy. They always say the nice guy finishes last. I said, I want that guy. He won't finish last with me. And I was so ready to be a good partner and to like go on dates and explore. And it was really great. Also, I was new to the city. We played tourist. He took me on the best dates, and it was an entirely different relationship than I had ever been in. Couldn't get enough of him. I couldn't get enough conversation with him. And I was super smitten. And as soon as I saw him, it was at a singles mixer. And I walked in, she was there. Her name's Allison. We're still friends. And our wedding photos in her office. She's actually not that far down from us. Her office is near here to my house. And she's like, is there anyone that you like? I was like, that guy against the wall. And it's so funny. I described who I wanted. I dragged a friend with me from work. I said, come with me. I need a wing woman. And he was exactly dressed the way that I described who I wanted to meet. And then he didn't ask for my number, but the next singles mixer was like, how do you call it? Where they ring the bell, like a fast dating, quick dating, speed dating. Look at me, words are hard. So we did speed dating, and he's like, I made a mistake. I want to go on a date with you. And he made like maybe write it down on my paper. And we were too loud, and they told us to shut up because we were like screaming, laughing so much. And we got married less than a year later. So it was just really, I think because I started to trust myself and I took that big leap, and there was something in my soul that said, you need to get out of this city. You need to start over. The greatest thing you could do is start over where nobody knows you, because then you can just reinvent yourself. And there was just so much heaviness that I felt in that city. in Miami. And it was just like, I was born there. My dad was there, and it was always so hard with him. And I was just like, it's time to move on. And my boss at the time when I was working in Miami, he's like, well, you can't work here much longer because you can't be more educated than me. And I was getting a master's degree. So I was like, there's no more manufacturing facilities that I can work at. I worked at them all. So I need to go somewhere else. So that's how I met, like, the good one is I let someone else pick him for me. And then everyone else would ask me at work, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm shopping for a husband. I'm shopping for a husband. What are you doing? What are you up to? I'm shopping for a husband, going on a date, let you know. And I would just go and have fun. Like, and that was it. And eventually my husband, he asked me in the first date, he goes, okay, now we're here. What do you want? I was like, I'm shopping for a husband. I want to get married. Like, I'm 29. I'm 30. And he's like, okay. And I was like, and I had it. Like, I had the job. I had a nice car. I owned a horse by then. I had a horse. And I was like, I have my horse. I have my cats. I would like a husband to share it with. I said, maybe have 1 or 2 kids. And I was like, but that's really what I want to do. Like, and I want to have a boring life. I want to do groceries with someone. Like, I had so much trauma in my life. I was like, fuck it. Like, I just want to have a boring life. I want to do life calmly. It's really calm here in Nebraska. There's a lot of corn and cows.
I don't even know what a corning pappet. What is that?
No, corn and cows. There's like corn and cows, meaning like beef cows moo. Like, there's just it's a lot of farms.
So it's slow.
It's slower.
Yeah, it's slower. Oh my, and so did that not freak him out when you were like, look, I want to get married, I want to have a boring life, and
No,
you're
he wanted the same thing too. He goes, yeah, I don't not to talk too much about his private life, but he had just come out of, like, he had studied to be a monk for a long time, and he had left the monastery. He had tried it out, and he's like, this is not for me, after preparing for it for so long. And he had decided when he came back to Omaha, he wanted to get married. So he was looking for a wife too. He wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I think it was just divine timing.
It always is. Timing is a massive, is kind of the be all or end all, I think, in any relationship.
Yeah. And this year this December we'll be married 10 years. So it's so wild to say that.
How exciting.
It's a really good time.
Yeah. And then, when did you feel like did you afterwards feel like you were ready to try for a family? Like, how did that play in and take you to obviously the Reiki journey, I guess, that you're now in?
Well, we wanted to spend some time alone. And so we got married. My dad died April of 2014. We got engaged September and got married that same year. So we got engaged September and got married December, like 90 days. And then it was like actually 90 days to the day, like from September 21st, he proposed, we got married December 21st. And we wanted to spend a few months getting to know each other. And then after that, try. But we didn't get pregnant. And I was getting my period. And it was a negative pregnancy test and a period every month. And it was really kind of ironic that now I know so much about my cycle. And even then, I had no idea about follicles. I just thought if you had enough sex, you would get pregnant.
That's what we're taught.
And yeah, and I didn't know anything about my ovulation window, and they didn't really talk to me too much about it. And they're like, okay. And that was it. So there was no, like, I didn't go to a fertility specialist, but they did send me to a specialist to check my hormones and make sure that everything was like with my libido was fine. And that was kind of an issue because in newlyweds, you're supposed to be like rabbits and you're supposed to be like, supposed to be. But the reality, it wasn't. He goes, I do want to have a kid. You want to have a kid. You're healthy, but let's figure out why. And then the specialist, she's like, you're just really sad. And she is like the first one to say grief can like shut down your fertility. And that's how I got into grief therapy with like the exact one that they chose for me. So it was wild to me because it was not like she was a grief therapist, but she also worked with women's health, and she also was a sex therapist.
Right.
And she was very well versed in how all the emotions work with your body. So she was medical, but also very understanding of like how it all worked together. And I
Yeah.
think it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made it through my postpartum. Like she was the same therapist that carried me through all of it, all
Mm.
the way into my postpartum. Yeah. So because she could see like how it affected me, she carried me the whole way through. And I always recommend every woman to have a good therapist
Mm.
on hand. Like if you don't have one, go get one today because you just never know. Like, and you should be going in and have like routine like mental health checkups. I think they're like oil changes. Like
100%.
we go in and we see um a marriage counselor. Like I think it's just once a year, but it's just like a calibration check-in. It's just like an oil check-in. You know, I learned something every single time. I was not a psychology major, like I was a business major. So every time that I speak to someone, like a therapist, I leave with another skill. And the better that I am, the better partner he has, and the better mom that my son has. So, and it's a lot easier to get into somebody's office if you're a current patient. So if something does hit the fan, you're not having to see if you connect with someone, explain the situation, get to know them. It's such a huge thing to connect with somebody, and then like it's a lot. So if you already have an established relationship, it just is easier to go.
Yeah, and like the trust is already there, and they know
It's
you as
so
well.
different. Yeah.
And
Like
it's
if you can go find a therapist when you're not in crisis, you'll be able to connect better
that's such good
because they're
advice.
more
Like
available. Like
I've never
there's more of you available that's not frozen.
Yeah, because like you said, normally, and I'm looking at myself, like you get to crisis when you're like, shit, I need a therapist. Like no one thinks to go when they're in a good place. It's such good advice. It's so obvious
Right.
advice. It's such good advice. I've never heard that before. Yeah. Um, and so I love
I've had a lot of therapists in my life.
me too. Yeah. And you know what? I think that's becoming the norm now, and it's so amazing. It's so refreshing
I
to
think it's
hear.
a I think so too. Like if I make a new friend, I'm like, so are you in therapy? What for? Let's exchange stories.
Oh my
What does
God.
your therapist say? My best friends are all in therapy, and I'm kind of jealous of my one friend. She lives in a different state, so we like Facebook Messenger every day. And she goes, "You won't believe what she said to me." And I said, "What?" She goes, um, "It's super funny because all of my mother issues happened in my 20s, and she's going through her mother issues now, and we're in our 40s." So I'm
Mm.
like, so it's kind of hard for me to relate, but also I'm very supportive. But like, she goes, "She said I outgrew my mother emotionally." I was like, "What?" Like, I'm a more emotionally mature than my mom, and that's why I can't stand her. And I was like, wait a minute, back up the track. I never had anyone like put it that way. Like, I am more emotionally mature than my mom. And
Yeah,
that is why there is a disconnection. And I
yeah.
was like, I sat with that one for a while. I was like, dude, your therapist is good. Can I have her? Is that a conflict? I was like, that's
No.
insane to me. But like, I love it when other people share their nuggets from their sessions. It's so juicy.
Yeah. I think for me, it's more being challenged. Like, I'm very lucky. All of my friends, we challenge each other in the best way possible, but I
Yes.
want to keep being challenged on things. I don't want a guru. I hate that word. I don't want someone to preach to me.
Yeah.
That's really unattractive. Um, but it's like being challenged on things and like just I mean, you're a projector, so you're good at like reflecting things back to people and highlighting patterns that you said they don't even really
Yeah.
realize. It's that kind of dynamic, of like, I feel like I'm going crazy, but you've just told me why that's happening, or you've shown me a different perspective. Um, so I love that. And I want to quickly touch on, so you've mentioned around like spirit babies and that
Yeah.
side of things. So how did you, so obviously things weren't flowing well for you in conceiving Ollie at the time. When did you then
Mm-mm.
get into the spirit baby side of things?
So, when I became a Reiki master, at that point, I was 80% sure I wasn't crazy and that I was a medium. And I had taken mediumship classes and learned about ethics of mediumship. But when I got my Reiki attunement, which is the installation of Reiki energy for level 3 Reiki, which was Reiki Master, which is teacher level, I got very sharp. My messages got more heightened, more clear, and more detailed. So then I would practice with my Reiki clients. I was like, hey, it's got my Reiki Master attunement. And would you be okay? Would you be open if I get messages? Would you be okay? And I would use oracle cards to help validate that. Or, hey, I would work on chakras and I would get vision. So I would sit with my hands on their eyes or their head. And I remember this one distinct moment, and it was a very strong moment for me because I also learned like to better phrase things. And this girl now is like a super good friend of mine, and she has a Reiki baby. And I said, are you going through a divorce? And that is not something you say to someone when their
Randomly.
eyes are closed and they're on the massage table and the room is dim and they're here for relaxation. She starts bawling. I didn't hear from her for a month. She said nothing. I felt like the earth had just eaten me up and I felt super bad. And that was like, especially then I went to my spiritual coach and I was like, I did this. She's like, yeah, that was not like good tactfulness. Like, you should have had a little bit more grace or like shut your mouth. But I was like, this is what I feel like her world was dividing. And it turns out she was going through a custody battle with her ex and he wanted full custody. So there was a divorce. She did separate from him. And she told me that like a month later. And she was like, she goes, and that's when I learned also like you have to filter the messages that you get so that they are matching the emotional state of the person. So, not censoring the message, but also like they're like, I could have handled that a lot better. I'm not perfect. I've grown from those experiences. I got symbols and over repetition of a lot of Reiki sessions, the babies became more prominent. So it just started with their spirit guides. And then once I started working with more women who were trying to conceive, it became spirit babies. I also read this book that was Spirit Baby Messages, or just Spirit Babies. You can get it on Amazon, it's like $15. Yeah.
It's so good.
And then I was like, why can't we, if I can talk to spirit guides, I can talk to my Reiki guides, I can talk to my higher self, I can talk to their higher self, I can talk to their dads and their moms that have passed and the babies that they lost. Why can't I talk to the ones? It just dawned on me after reading that book. Like, why can't I just pull them in? Like, we pray to God, Kuan Yin, Buddha, we bring in all these ascended masters. Why can't we just bring in the spirit babies who are ultimately they're the purest love and light? And that became a thing. And then I would pull a card, this is for your spirit baby, and then I started to feel them. And then I started to channel, and I ended up getting like 4 lineages total. So now I practice kundalini mainly. And with those attunements, when I got crystal Reiki and then I got kundalini, I can channel super easily now just by connecting to a person. I can feel when I move through their chakras, the spirit baby will show up most of the time. And then I started to see them, like how many babies they would come. The womb started to speak to me. It was just over time, but the past 3 years have been the most developing of my mediumship.
And so, did you speak to your baby as well? Like, did you were you at the
No,
point where, so you
I
would
was
never know
so
that that was
she
a
she did. She did. She said, like, and everything that she described him, that he was calm, he was very sweet, and he was musical, and he made her feel like warm. That's exactly who our son is now. He's the most contagious, infectiously happy little boy. He's literally described from preschool to kindergarten, now in first grade. He's the best friend. He's so inclusive of everyone. And he sings all the time. And so she used to say he's very musical. And I was like, yeah, we sing all the time. I sing to him all of the time. And he loves to sing and he loves to play his guitar. And he's always connecting with someone or something. Like, he's always with one of us. We're one and done. He's our only one. But he is everything that she described him to be. That when I would get Reiki during my pregnancy, at that point when I was pregnant and getting Reiki, I was not confident enough that I was just going to the spiritual person who had the gifts. I had not recognized until Ollie was much older that I actually could do something. It was her repeatedly telling me every session
crazy.
and just being so kind to me to believe. I was like, well, if you say so, you keep telling me, I guess I believe you. And I did it. And I was like, okay. And I had never invested in myself before. It was $500. I had only gone to college. I had never done anything outside of college. I'd never gotten a certification. And it was very intense. It was like 6 hours, 2 days in a row. And then it was a very physical attunement.
And so for anyone that's listening right now and they're thinking, I'm very sensitive to energies, I'm not sure how to handle these, like, and they're listening
Mm.
to you, they're thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like my kind of person, but I've never ventured into this space. Like, what advice would you give them?
There's a couple. That's a loaded question. I love it so much. Okay,
No.
so if you are sensitive to energies, understand there's a few things you can do. The first thing is something called energetic hygiene. You need to be taking care of yourself just like you take a shower every day. You need to be cleansing yourself every day. You can be doing something that's called cutting cords.
Yeah.
You can do this with a salt bath and a quick intention or prayer over it, saying, this bath is to dissolve all cords that drain my energy or is taking my power away. All of my energy and all of my emotions and all that is me must be restored to me and sovereign to me and me alone. Like a prayer like that. Another thing is you can look up cutting cords. It's called dry bathing, and you can use your arms and imagine that you're cutting away the energy of others. Um, another thing that I really recommend to clients, you can wear something called cellulite. You can get like a cellulite bracelet or a wand to help you cut cords. So that's one thing. The second thing is you can learn to bubble your energy. Imagine an energetic bubble full of Reiki or love and light is around you, and anything that is negative must be transmuted to love and bounced away from you and sent back to where it came from, that it's not allowed to enter your bubble. The most important thing is that you are the powerful thing, not the crystal. Your words and the power that you give them and the way that you say them matters the most. So I have asthma, so we don't sage my house anymore. We don't burn, a lot of candles and a lot of incense can have a lot of strong odors, and that can be really bad for people who have breathing issues like myself, or even for animals. You can sound is really great to heal heaviness. So sound frequency, like, the witch's tale is like put the bells on the doors. So if you feel heavy, or if you need to protect yourself, you can do the salt bath, you can bubble yourself, but also you can command your energy to be sovereign to you. And that way, nobody is a vampire or you don't have any energy leaks. If you are feeling consistently tired, look to see who you're around, look at your environment, even look at the clothes that you're wearing. What colors are you wearing? Um, are you cleansing those things when you come home? Like for me, like Goodwill makes me super exhausted. So like thrift stores, there's a lot of energy that attached to used things. So we do cleanse things if we do get like a hand-me-down or we repurpose furniture like a table or a chair. I do like to paint things, so I will cleanse them. And I use bells now, or I'll use a crystal.
So when you use
And
that, what you say, you hang them on the door, you said earlier?
yeah, I just get so I bought them on Amazon, and they are the dog potty training bells. They like hang on the door, and I have them on all the doors in the house.
Oh my
You can
God.
also hang cinnamon sticks tied with cellulite sticks above every doorway. We have that to cleanse the energy. But if you're looking to, so the next part of your question was Reiki. Like, maybe Reiki is something for me to get into? That's perfect. Reiki works well with any religion, any medical treatment plan, any of your beliefs, because Reiki can work with no belief system or a belief system. And Reiki can be given to anyone as long as they're consenting, and anyone can get a certification. The first thing I would do is understand that level 1 is all you need to practice Reiki on yourself. If you want to practice Reiki on yourself and others, get level 2. And depending on what lineage you get, it can also determine the length of the education and also the price point. I would suggest going on TikTok and going on YouTube and looking up different lineages of Reiki. The lineages of Reiki vary with their beliefs and like how they are given to you. In attunement or in every level of Reiki, you're going to get the installation of Reiki into your system, and that can be done via meditation, traditional Reiki, which is traditional Usui Reiki, which is Usui was the gentleman that invented Reiki from Japan over 100 years ago. That's where they blow air into the top of your skull, and it's like over an hour of them blowing, and they have to say things in Japanese in order, and it's quite the process for them. Also, you get really tired because they're blowing and they're like yelling into the top of your head. A lot of the new lineages of Reiki, and lineages are just like, you have different types of karate and different denomination of churches. There's just different lines of Reiki. And the main rule about Reiki is that it's meant to evolve. And it's not the way that I do Reiki. It's not the same as maybe if you were certified, because everyone's different. Also, other people don't have the same gifts. So I can speak to people on the other sides. I can see inside wombs. I can see where the blockages are. And spirit babies will tell me, okay, ask her about age 4. What happened around age 5? And then I'll be like, okay, so baby is telling me that there was something significant around age 5. What happened? We're like, well, that's when my parents got divorced or when my dad left. So other people can talk to animals. Some people can see auras. I can't see colors of auras to save my life. I've tried. It's not happening. But, and that does not make one greater than another, but you should always look for someone that you feel connected with and that's willing to answer your questions. If a healer of any modality is not willing to answer your questions, find another one. There's many of us out there. But yeah, so if they don't have a heart of a teacher, because you shouldn't always be with the same healer. You're meant to leave and grow and extend yourself to outgrow them. So I don't keep people forever. No. I would love to keep them from preconception to postpartum. And then at some point I'll tell them, and I have said this, like, was like, you have officially graduated. I'm going to cancel your membership. I love you, but you don't need me anymore. No, I want to stay. I was like, you don't need me anymore. It's time. And that also is like, it's a two-way highway. It's not enough for me just to take their money. Like, it's like, you have to be energetically be a match. I was like, you've done all the work. It's time for you. I've done all I can do for you. And I think that's really important to have a healer that has the integrity to say things like that to you, to make sure that it's honest. And I think there's a lot of fake healers online, but I also think if you take the time to converse with them, get in their DMs on Instagram, ask them the questions, ask them, when did you get certified? Who certified you? Or what organization certified you? Can you explain what the difference of this versus that? Sure. But they should be able to answer all of your questions. I think that's a big sign of like authenticity and willingness to help you.
Yes. And then, so for anyone that's listening right now that's like, I want to work with you, like, what are you working on at the moment? What are you birthing yourself? How can
Oh my
they
gosh.
connect with you?
I just came out of a dark night of the soul. So I have literally been birthing the most amazing things over the past 2.5, 3 weeks. So my favorite two things that I have in the world are the Make a Baby membership, which is an introductory way to work with me, and then the Make a Baby headquarters, which is the juiciest way to work with me, which is a 90-day program where we are healing and we're coaching, and I'm teaching you how to connect with your own spirit baby. The last time that we did that, we had one of our, we were just finishing that up from January, and the headquarters only had one person in that round, and she got pregnant. So she's had the biggest transformation, and she quit her job, and she is going to be a stay-at-home mom now as of her choice, and she is pregnant, and that's after multiple IUIs. So we're super excited about that. But so the 90 days is for when you are like really serious about your healing. You want to get accelerated into it. You want to learn Reiki 1 and 2. You want to learn how to heal your own womb, and you want to be besties with me because those 90 days are intense. We're healing every single wound that is blocking your blocking your fertility. And the membership, that's only $49 a month. You can cancel anytime. And I'm giving your listeners 3 days free inside the membership. We just launched our own podcast. It's a private podcast only for the members.
Love it.
Isn't that sexy? I love it so much.
Best idea.
And all it is, it's not like a teaching podcast or have topics. It's literally a hotline. So you submit your questions to me, and then I re-record an episode answering it. So you can ask as many questions as you want, and that I generate the episodes. And that our first episode got released on Monday. And then we have a live healing call every single month. And we just rolled out your, basically it's going to be Reiki level 1. Self-healing activation. You're going to be able to heal yourself with Reiki. So you're going to learn how to heal your own womb. And they have access to a vault of all of my fertility meditations, pregnancy meditations, and postpartum.
Wow.
For $49 a month. It's amazing. It's so incredible. And we have a Telegram channel for all the girlies to chat with each other.
Because community is everything. I think more than ever.
It really is.
Yeah. And that's why I asked you about how you felt coming out, in this space, because we really need our tribes. We really, really, really do now.
I think it's really important also to know that your tribe can change. Like when I quit corporate 3 years ago, and who is in my life now, the women are different. They're not the same people. And Reiki has brought the best women into my life that I just can't imagine being without.
Oh, amazing. So for anyone that wants to also check you out, are you on the old Instagram, YouTube? Like, where can they also
All the things.
and
Yeah,
keep
you
an eye
can find me on TikTok, which I'm most active. We have like 18,000 friends on there. And then we have Instagram. You can find me there. Always DM me there. The Carolina Sotomayor, which is my handle. And YouTube. Yep, same thing there. And my website, carolinasotomayor.com. Or my podcast, which is the Make a Baby podcast.
But you have to be in the membership group, right? For the Make a
Nope,
Baby.
that's for the womb hotline. So I have a public free podcast that's also on YouTube that's called Make a Baby Podcast, and that's free. You can binge it, like it, treat it like Netflix. And we have meditations on there, guest experts, all of the things, how to talk to your spirit baby, just in shorter form. And we're, I think, 129 episodes. Yeah.
I love this. Okay, so for any of you listeners, I'll put everything in the show notes. But if anyone's listening right now and they want to reach out to Carolina or myself more, please just slide in our DMs or reach out to us. But seriously, thank you so much for today. I really, really, really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
it's been a pleasure to have you. I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so
I'm
much.
really thankful for your time and space. I really love your vibe. You're such a treat.
Thank you. Yeah, and keep doing what you're doing, and I can't wait to watch
Thank
what
you.
else happens. Like, you're such an inspiration,
Thank
and it's
you.
such a great thing that you've done as well to follow your gifts. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope you have the best day.
You too.